Alright guys, welcome! I'm going to teach you guys how to buy a guitar, used guitar, at a pawn shop. There's some stuff you got to look for buying a used guitar at a pawn shop. And you can take this same information if you're going to buy something used online as well, on Marketplace or Craigslist. Now, you got to have an in-person meeting. That's the big thing here, okay? So eBay is kind of out on this one, alright? Now, you got to look for a lot of things on a guitar. You got to know what you're looking for. And unfortunately, parents generally don't know squat. They just know, oh, my kid wants to play guitar, right? Okay, that's great. So, and stay tuned for the video where I'm going to talk to you about why you should never take lessons at a music store, like ever, okay? Now, one of the first things I look at when I check out a guitar is I see something that attracts my attention. Okay, now if you're buying this guitar for your child or even for yourself, but especially your child, bring your child with you because the guitar has to fit. Now, we are going to talk more specific about acoustics because they are more critical. Electrics are really not that critical, okay? But you also got to buy the right guitar for the type of music you want to play as well, right? That's another big thing. So, anyways, so with an acoustic, I take a look and I see, oh, well, that looks really nice, and the price might seem okay to you, but there's always a model number inside a guitar, or marked somewhere on a guitar. You want to look that up on your phone, okay, and you want to find out what does this thing sell for brand new, because you got to compare new to used prices, because sometimes pawn shops, they're pretty tricky people, okay? And I tell you right now, they're not paying much for these used guitars. Now, this one I kind of scored on, and I am pretty sure they didn't pay all that much for the guitar, but the owner of the hawk shop did kind of say that somebody priced it wrong because of the really sick case it came with. That case was $187 Canadian. So, and they were asking $179 for the guitar with the case. And it did have some extras in the case. It had a capo, it had a few other things. But generally, they never sell a guitar with a case. Even if it comes with a case, they always sell those cases separately because that's more money for them. So, but they're looking at the whole purchase. They're not going to pay much. So, if they're selling this for $180 regardless, they likely only paid about 75 bucks tops, okay? But they got to make money, right? And they usually double, triple, or quadruple what they pay for something. So you got to be aware, okay, let's check out the model number of it. It's an Oscar Schmidt. There's a model number in here. We're going to type that in. We're going to find out who actually sells this brand in our town, whatever. And we're going to find out. Now, this guitar, I can tell you right now, sells for $295, brand spanking new. Does not come with a case, but will likely come with the amp cord and the strap because there is a pickup in this thing, okay? Not all acoustics have pickups either, so whatever you're looking at, regardless, okay? Now, one of the first things I do is I tune up the guitar. So you're likely not going to have a tuner. Ask them if they have a tuner and that you can tune the guitar with because you want to take a good look at this thing, right? So you want to tune up E, A, D, G, B, and D, obviously, okay? Now, even though you don't know anything about guitar yet, probably, okay, and this is your first time buying and you want to buy used at a pawn shop, because why buy a brand new expensive guitar? Look, you can buy brand new, really good guitars for like literally 200 bucks. No pickup, but it's also going to be a full-size dreadnought guitar, or it might be a smaller guitar. But on an acoustic guitar, it's very critical that the guitar fits the person's body properly, okay? Whoever is going to be the one playing it. So bring your kid with you if it's for your kid, etc. You get the idea? All right, so you want to take every single string on every single fret and you want to put some pressure down, not a ton, but you know, enough to ring out the note. You want to check out every single fret. You're listening for buzzing and dead spots. Now, you can do this. You don't even have to know how to play guitar to do it. But you want to make sure every note is clean all the way up to the last fret on every single string. Do that, Okay, if you hear any buzzing or dead notes, it's fretting out, like it's going to have a very bad sound to it, okay? So make sure you're in between the fret wire and the fret itself. So, you know, here, like basically in the middle or close to the middle, okay? And as long as that passes, that's usually a good sign, okay? The next thing you want to do is you want to hold down the last fret and the first fret. And I usually like to put my thumb across over here to around the 5th or 6th fret. And what I'm looking for is relief. I'm looking for the string being able to push up and down so that it's not physically touching the frets, okay? There's nothing wrong with a straight neck where there's almost no relief, but you always have to have a little bit. Now, some of these things are adjustments that can be done, but you're going to have to get them done from a professional. That's going to cost you some money. So we're trying to get you to get something you don't have to worry about spending anything extra on, okay? Now, if this passes here, that's good, okay? The other thing we want to look at is underneath each string, we want to look underneath for divots or dents on the frets, okay? And if they seem to be pretty bad divots, they'll make themselves very present when you're doing this because you're going to hear probably buzzing going on, okay? Now, a lot of the guitars I've always checked out at pawn shops, with the exception of maybe, I don't know, a couple over the last 40 years, have always had really good frets, never any damage. A few of them were really super bad. And they still wanted a lot of money for that guitar. And it's like, it needed an actual refret, which, you know, at that time was about $22 per fret to be replaced. And every single fret was toast on that guitar. It was not worth a refret, okay? So you just walk away from that sort of thing, okay? A couple of light little divots is not a bad thing, but, you know, it's something where you got to make sure that it's not buzzing and that chords can be done. The other thing would be handy is if you could learn a couple of chords, okay? Even just to hear the sound of the guitar so you know what it sounds like. And again, pawn shop employees, unless you've got somebody there that plays guitar, you're not going to know what it sounds like properly. So try and learn a D. Even if it's a straight down strum, that's all you need. Try and learn like an E chord. Okay? And maybe even an A. This is going to give you a pretty good idea of how the guitar sounds and if you like the sound of that guitar. Because not all guitars sound the same either, okay? This one's a very thin-bodied guitar. It's a very small body as well, so it tends to be more treble and mid and less bass. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's going to play great. You can sing along great with it, but that's the guitar, right? Now, tuners to me are a big thing. I will never touch guitars generally with these kind of tuners unless I plan on upgrading those tuners. Something that I can do myself. I don't have to pay to have it done. But you're not going to be doing that. You don't have the money to do that. And to pay somebody to do it can cost you money. So try and stay away from those kind of guitars. Now, I'm going to show you a prime example of a guitar with those exact kind of tuners so that you know. Now, even though this is a nice guitar overall, it does have these pretty cheap tuners on them, which generally tend to not hold tune all that great. I mean, the main guitar itself is really nice, you know, and it sounds nice. And it wouldn't be it's not a bad beginner guitar either, okay? These tuners, even though they're not the type I normally would prefer, because they have adjuster screws here, these are actually the better of the cheap garbage tuners. The ones that don't have anything there for little adjuster screws, don't even go anywhere near a guitar with those kind of tuners, even for a brand new guitar, because they're junk. And it's going to cost you a lot of grief with having the thing to be staying in tune. So let's say you got even these die-cast tuners. These are cheap tuners anyways. These are like 20 bucks out of China, literally, okay? I mean, but they work really well. And they hold their tune really well, okay? Now, you want to look at the top Okay, now not all cheap guitars are going to have a solid top like this does. It's usually an all laminate guitar. Makes no difference, okay, other than, yeah, a solid top is nicer sounding, but a solid top you have to be more concerned about humidity than you would on an all laminated guitar, okay? This is why you look up the specs on the guitars too, the price range, what they sell for, so you know if you're getting a good deal even on the price, okay? Now, you want to feel your hand around the entire top surface. What you're feeling for is divots, where it's kind of like a warped feeling, so it's not completely flat. Now, this guitar has a very minor, and I do mean very minor, little hump in it, because I know that pawn shops don't properly humidify their shops. It's still acclimating to my house. Probably within the next couple of weeks, I won't even feel that hump again. It'll be completely gone. It'll be just flat again the way it should be. But it is a solid top, so I know it's going to return to its normal state once it's properly humidified in my house, okay? So, but you want to feel that either way. But what you don't want is that sunken in feeling. That you really don't want at all. But you really don't want the hump either, but this is very, very minor. It's not a very pronounced hump, and if you looked at the guitar, you know, it's not really all that pronounced. Okay, so we've gotten through that. Everything seems to be pretty much in general. It's really okay. The next thing is you want to have a sheet of paper. Even if you have to bring that sheet of paper from home with you, do it. And what you want to do is concentrate on the back side here and on the front side of the bridge, okay? And you want to see if that paper goes underneath the bridge, okay? That's a sign that the bridge is starting to lift. Now, if it's only putting a little tiny bit of the paper underneath, that's not an entirely bad thing and can easily be fixed up with a little bit of CA glue, which you can get just about anywhere. Okay, it's kind of like crazy glue, but it's not crazy glue. It's a little different, okay? But same idea, all right? And you can just run a very, very thin bead around the entire backside. But check the front side too with the paper. So take your sheet of paper, put it under the front side, and check the front side of the bridge. And check around any contours on the bridge as well. Make sure the paper is not going to go under. And we got a pretty good solid bridge, so we know we're okay there. We don't have anything that's going to be causing problems, right? But if a bridge is starting to lift, it's going to lift back here first, okay? And if it's starting to lift, that is generally not a good sign, especially if you can fit too much paper under there, okay? But a very minuscule amount of paper, it's not a break it on the deal yet, but you are going to be aware that it is starting to lift a tiny bit. But there's still a long ways to go, but I would definitely recommend that if you do end up buying that guitar, get some CA glue, run it across the backside here, and you'll be fine. It'll hold, okay? And you should be good for probably several years, okay? But I mean, you gotta look. I mean, you're buying from a pawn shop. You're buying, who knows how that guitar was treated. But you want to try and get the best quality instrument for your money, okay? And you want to do the same thing. Feel the back for flatness as well. That's a big thing. The other thing you want to do is you want to look down the neck, and you want to close one eye, kind of like you're looking through a rifle scope. And in this area here, what you don't want to see is any kind of a hump. If there's a hump of any kind, run, okay? This is not fixable. And there are some brands like Fender acoustics that can develop what's called hump disease, okay? I've also seen it happen to a few Epiphone models as well. And once that hump happens, the thing is toast, because you're going to have fret issues, okay? And you'll find them already just doing that test. You'll find, hey, I've got some buzzing, you know, and I'm getting close to this area. Check down the neck and look and see. And if you see that hump appear, that's a bad sign. Okay, now that could also be an under hump, but it's usually an over hump that I look at as being the worst part. And yeah, this one's nice and straight. There's nothing wrong with it. so we're not going to be prone to hump disease on this thing, so that's a good thing. This hump disease also happens on Madeira guitars especially as well. Okay, I've seen it happen to a lot of Madeiras. I actually have a student that has a Madeira, and he's got the hump disease going on, and it's affecting from about the 11th fret right down where that hump has happened. There is no cure other than to take it to the nearest fire pit, throw it in there and burn it and sacrifice it to the fire gods, because that's where it needs to go. There's no fixing that problem, okay? So, anyhow, so you got decent tuners that are working, even if they're the cheaper tuners, like on that Epiphone I showed you. It should be okay for quite a while. It should hold its tune really well. These happen to hold exceptionally well. You know, the height of the strings off the fretboard, that's another thing to look at. This is kind of a typical height. I've seen them much lower on acoustics, but as long as it's not buzzing or fretting out, from this height and lower is okay, as long as it's not buzzing or fretting out. And look at the same side here on the high side. That should be around the same kind of height going on, okay? And but if you need to lower the height a little bit, especially if it is a little high, there are two ways to have this done for you. I would recommend a professional because you're not going to know how to do it, but the saddle can be shaved and lowered, and the strings could be lowered a little bit more at the nut side so that it balances everything out. This guitar, on the other hand, when I'm looking at it, I'm looking at the space for the fret in front, okay? There's not a lot of meat that I could actually pull off that saddle. Very minimal, in fact, less than 1 millimeter. And that's not going to make a difference in the overall length of the guitar by lowering the bridge 1 millimeter. So it's not worth doing. And okay, in fact, it could end up causing problems. So the nut I already know is cut properly at the depths where it needs to be. And my action height is actually pretty good. It's very playable. So that's actually good. And acoustics do generally have a higher action on them anyways over electrics. They're supposed to, okay? So, but they shouldn't be like, you know, this sort of like high off the fretboard. If it's like that and you see a big bow in the neck, I would run away from that one too, okay? So, anyways, but nothing broken, nothing missing, you know. You won't always see 2 strap pins on an acoustic. Sometimes you just see the one. But I prefer to have 2 strap pins. I don't like the idea of tying off the neck because that can damage the guitar over time. It does happen, has happened, always happens, okay? But it's kind of your thing. You can have professionally installed a strap pin in the heel, either in here or back here, for about 10 bucks Canadian. That's about what the music stores charge. I do this stuff myself because I have all the tools to do all this, so I'm not worried about it myself. So, now, it doesn't matter if it's a cutaway design like this, or if it's like even a dreadnought, like this sort of design, okay? It's entirely up to you which style. But dreadnoughts are also really big bodies too, generally. But there are some pretty big bodies in cutaways, so, you know, you have to have that guitar fit. Now, like I said, about the fit. Now, for me, this guitar is technically would be considered a little small, okay? Because I have a higher point, but you're not strumming like this. You're using your wrist. But if you want to swing it out, you need a pivot point. This guitar, for me, would be a little small for doing any kind of what I call chopping the wood, okay? But I can make it work because I'm an experienced guitar player, something that you aren't right now, okay, or your student isn't. Now, with a dreadnought guitar, these things are much bigger, okay, so already I've got a nice pivot point up here, and it fits me, but you don't want to be up like this on a guitar. That's bad, very bad. You need your arm more relaxed and down at a slight angle to be comfortable, so There are teens that I have taught over the years that actually play a full-size dreadnought like this very comfortably because they have the down angle. I've had a few students where they're up like this, and that's not comfortable and it hurts like hell. And that means they were sold the wrong guitar even new, okay? So that's bad. But you know, it's funny that music stores, they'll always say, well, you can grow into the guitar. You don't grow into a guitar, you grow out of a guitar, right? You always do. And kids, they always grow. So a kid could start out with something even this size, perhaps, if it fits them properly. And eventually they're going to grow up. Their trunk between their leg and here is going to get taller. At least we hope so. If not, long, slanky legs, okay? Then you're still stuck with the same size body. But if the child or person is growing still, then yeah, their trunk could get longer here, which means eventually you need a bigger guitar. But you want to make sure you have the right size guitar. Now, the last thing you want to check on a guitar is the fret ends. Take your fingers, pinch them along the sides like this, and if they feel sharp, that means they need work done to them. Now, pawn shop guitars like this, very common, even on very expensive guitars, they have sharp fret ends because they don't properly humidify the guitars in their shop, which is absolutely stupidity, okay? Because they're wrecking quality instruments by not humidifying them properly, and then they still want the big bucks. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve that kind of money if they're going to mistreat the guitar that way. Unfortunately, this is the world of pawn shops, okay? But I am able to do this work myself, so I can take care of these sharp fret ends and make this thing a perfectly good playing guitar. No big deal. I actually do this work for people as well. I just don't charge massive amounts of money like professional shops do, okay? Because I think it's absolutely ridiculous, okay? So, to me, there's always a limit for everything, okay? But either way, that's what you need to know about buying guitars at pawn shops, all right? Now, electrics are going to be in a similar idea, except electrics you don't worry about, oh, is the bridge lifting? Because, well, they're usually screwed down solid, or they have a whammy bar system, which, yeah, it might be cocked up, so you may have to do some adjustments if it has a whammy bar on it. That's kind of standard procedure, but that's a whole other video. We will discuss that about setting up electric guitars at some point between hardtails versus stuff that has like a Floyd Rose or a Strat type of whammy system on it, or even your typical Bigsby's. We can talk a little bit about them too in that video. But today I wanted to cover these because most guitars being sold are generally acoustics first, okay? That's generally the way it does go. There's more acoustics being sold than electrics. Electrics usually come down later, but students too, some of them, depending on the kind of music you are going to play, should actually determine what you buy, acoustic or electric, really, okay? Like if your child or yourself who's learning guitar wants to, you know, play that kind of stuff, or AC/DC, you know, then yeah, you probably shouldn't be buying acoustic. You should buy an electric. So we're gonna have to do a video on how to buy a used electric guitar at a pawn shop, okay? We'll do that next because I think it's important we cover acoustics and electrics, but in two separate videos because of time. We're already at 24 minutes. So I'm out of here on this one, but if you have questions, you know what? Put them in the comments below. Feel free to ask, and I'll do the very best I can to answer that for you. And stay tuned, we will also do a video on how to buy a used electric guitar from a pawn shop as well. So, see ya!